Oh, Rick, how many days we got left till we can call this thing dead?
I'm exhausted counting the days down. It's got to be over by now, right? Is the draft tonight?
I wish it were tonight. Not quite yet. We're having fun, but we're exhausted. We're at the end of the what feels like a Vegas bachelor party, but without all the extras. We're 3 days away, Rick, from the 2023 NFL Draft. This is with the first pick, CBS Sports NFL Draft Podcast, episode 41. I'm Ryan Wilson. That is Rick Spielman, our general manager, more than 30 years of NFL experience, including a decade as the Vikings general manager. Today, it's mock draft Monday. That's right. It's our final mock draft of the 2023 NFL draft cycle. And we're joined by CBS Sports draft analyst Josh Edwards to do this thing one last time. But don't worry, this is draft week. Gosh, it's taking forever to get here. And it's going to take even longer to get through it, which means we're somehow pumping out even more content. Today is mock draft Monday. On Tuesday, Rick and I will be back to talk about some of our favorite players from the first pick through pick number 259. And on Wednesday evening, assuming Rick gets from LaGuardia to Stamford, Connecticut in less than an hour, we'll see. Rick and I are going to be doing a live chat on the old YouTube machine, taking your questions.
Oh, you have it all backwards.
What is it?
It's on Wednesday. The live chat is I'm going to be in Kansas City on Friday.
Right.
That is that I can get there for the Friday draft before 7:00 if I land at 6.
That's right. And I'll clarify this. You could leave on Wednesday and you're still not getting through that traffic by Friday. So you're going to be late either way.
There's no traffic there.
But thank you for the clarification. Oh, by the way, which reminds me, Rick, as you point out, you'll be in Kansas City on Wednesday night during the live chat at 6 p.m. Eastern time. But please, if you're listening or watching, send your questions along. You can leave a comment on this YouTube episode and Debo will get to it, or send us a tweet at NFL Draft CBS, or leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts along with your question, and Debo will sure to make note of it. Then Thursday night, Friday night, and Saturday night, Rick will be in studio with me in Stamford, Connecticut, and we'll go live to recap.
No, I will not be in studio.
Oh, Friday and Saturday.
Friday night and Saturday, I will be in studio. Please get it organized. And
yeah,
if you're watching on YouTube, I broke out the Guayabera with the little champagne glass on top.
That's what that is?
I think so.
That's an understated Guayabera. I didn't even recognize it. That one I don't mind.
This one is like to celebrate the week of the draft. Monday kicks off the week of the draft, so I brought my celebratory, if that's such a word.
It is.
Guayabera.
Actually, you know what? I don't even hate that one. Hey, Debo, so he had the bowling Guayabera shirt, the suspenders Guayabera shirt, and then the champagne one. You want to rank them?
I mean, the bowling one was down the list. Rick was down bad with that one.
That was the most popular Guayabera shirt I had on this whole podcast.
I think I like the champagne one the best.
Yeah, we continue to ask people in the chat to rate Rick's Guayaberas. That's our newest segment.
Yeah, there you go. This one's pretty good. I like that. Your wife might let you wear this one outside the house, I feel like.
I've got 2 more to break out this week.
Oh, good. All right. Well, assuming whenever I see you, Friday, I think is the first day I get to see you. I miss you so much. I keep trying to get you here sooner than later. So Friday, we'll see Rick in person, and then hopefully he'll bring his 2 other Guayabera shirts and we can judge those. And finally, head over to NFL on CBS YouTube channel at any time to see our ever-growing list of individual team 7-round mock drafts. In fact, good old Josh and I are going to fire up a few more after we do this episode. On those episodes, we fire up the old mock draft simulator and make every pick for your favorite team, all 7 rounds. All right.
Did I get kicked off that segment already?
No, you're doing stuff. You're so busy. You like doing it, though.
Yeah, no, it was fun. We keep getting A+. How's Josh do it? Does he get A+?
Josh, we haven't missed a pick yet, so I mean we're doing pretty well. It's not hard, Rick. I don't know what you're talking about. It's not hard.
All right, our guy Josh is with us. He finally got a chance to speak after Rick kept correcting me about his whereabouts the next few days. So
the only thing I took from the Guayabera conversation was the fact that you can tell where each of us lives because Ryan and I are wearing sweatshirts and Rick is down there wearing short sleeves in Florida. So he's doing a little bit better than us this week.
Are you wearing shorts too, Rick?
We have to.
Oh, here we go. Eye candy. Oh, sweet mercy alive.
We
okay.
Don't need that.
If you're listening as opposed to watching, congratulations. You just saved yourself from seeing Rick's legs there, his shiny white legs. If you're watching on YouTube, we apologize. Rick will send you $1 to make up for the temporary blindness you just had to endure. All right, let's get into this
They're
mock
very
draft.
tan.
Are they? Is that what you call that?
Yes, very tan. It's the lighting in my office here that
Yeah.
from the CBS equipment that they sent to me that was getting thrown out. But hey, we can use it for Rick. He'll use it. He'll use anything. I don't have the fancy headsets or the Apple iPods or what do they call it? Earpods, or I can't afford those either.
AirPods. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just here, just whatever people will send me to my GoFundMe page for equipment I'll use.
Well, I tell you all the time, Rick, and I will continue to pray for you because I think it's gonna turn around for you. I have hope. All right, let's do this old mock draft here. Oh, you know what's funny, by the way, Rick, you'll appreciate this. When Thomas was our producer for a while Debo was cavorting around Italy, and we had those amazing graphics, those HQ type graphics for our mock draft.
Yes.
Eric K, the old podcast boss, asked why we had such crappy graphics last week with Debo just typing it into the Word document. So, Debo, do you want to defend yourself real quick before we get going?
No, it looked good.
There you go. And that, Rick, is why you don't have a microphone or earphones or anything. We need Thomas. All right, here we go. First pick, Rick, you're on the clock. And we're going to speed through some of these because we've done them to death. And I don't think at this point it's a surprise. But you have the Panthers taking Bryce Young. Bryce Young is your QB1. He's my QB1. Josh, is he your QB1?
He is.
Okay, he's your QB1 as well. Is there any concern if you're the Panthers about taking a small quarterback, Rick?
No, not with the division I play in, not with the weather I'm going to play in. Plus, I'm playing indoors as well. So no concern whatsoever.
Look at this. Debo's going to use the old mock draft simulator to upgrade the graphic. I love it. All right, I'm on the clock at number 2. The Texans, I have them taking C.J. Stroud. I'm not overthinking it. Rick, you said time and time again, you can't come out of this draft if you're the Texans without a quarterback. You have picks 2 and you have picks 12. But, Rick, I'll ask you, what if the Texans have a huge difference in their grades for Bryce Young, who they reportedly love, and the rest of the quarterbacks? Are you going to force yourself to take one here too, or would you take a Will Anderson?
Well, I'm just throwing this out, and we didn't do this in this mock, but if we wanted to be creative, we should have done this, is have the Texans take Will Anderson.
Right.
And then now where does it go? Does one of those quarterbacks come back to the Texans at 12, and they can get their quarterback at 12 plus the pass rusher? And what if the 4 quarterbacks went before 12? And I'm just throwing this out there because there's some love out in the street on Hendon Hooker. Would Hendon Hooker come into play that early? And I know, Ryan, you've been very anti Hendon Hooker this whole time.
Yeah. Can't stand that young man. But let me ask you though, Rick. So let's say 2 and 12, you miss out on a quarterback. I mean, how do you explain that to the fan base? And even if your grades are such that you don't have them as top 15 quarterbacks after Bryce Young, you just got to. We talked to them in the Clusters podcast last Monday, which feels like it was 3 weeks ago now. You stick to your board, so you're just not wavering.
Nope, you stick to your board. You spend all that time and that money and energy and effort to get that board stacked the right way, the way everybody in the organization saw it. So stick to your board. So this number 2 pick is why it's going to be so intriguing, because if they don't go quarterback here, then it's going to throw a tizzy into the rest of the draft. And then you're going to see a lot more movement, I think.
Right.
People trying to come up, and it's going to be a pretty entertaining first 10 picks in this on Thursday night if they don't go quarterback at number 2.
Let me ask you one more question, Rick, and then we'll get to Josh at number 3 with the Cardinals here. Chris Ballard, the Colts GM, said recently, and I thought this was very informative because at this time of the year, it feels like teams know more than media, which is true. But Chris Ballard said, we have no idea what other teams are doing because everyone lies. Did you have a sense for what teams were doing typically from year to year, or was it you just focused on what you could control and go from there?
Yeah, you try to anticipate, but you just kind of control what you can control and then be ready to react and respond to what happens. So it's like, just equate it to a game. All of a sudden, you didn't expect the safety blitz coming first play of the game or second play of the game. They start sending the safety off the edge. So that's when coaches, you're looking and you have to make adjustments on the fly. And that's the same thing through the draft.
No, that makes sense. So you're sort of game planning for the draft, but you with the expectation that things are not going to go as you might think, and then you have to adjust. I like it. All right. Finally, Josh, you get to make your pick at 3. The Cardinals, presumably, If CJ Stroud does not go 2, they'll get a ton of trade offers and they'll move out of this number 3 spot. But we're staying put here for the purposes of this final mock draft. Who are you going with the number 3?
I'm taking Will Anderson Jr., the edge rusher from Alabama. He is my top-rated player available. I think he's the type of player that Jonathan Gannon will want in that locker room to kind of restart this franchise, especially on that side of the ball. He's coming from a situation in Philadelphia where they had a wealth of depth along that defensive line. So I think you really want to start his first year with one of those difference-making edge rushers, and I think Anderson is that player.
Rick, if Tyree Wilson has a clean bill of health, would you consider him here?
I would, but I think Will Anderson is the safest pick. You're betting on Tyree Wilson's upside, which is huge. But like we said in the past, first-time head coach, first-time general manager, go with it for sure thing. Get the solid player that's going to be a very good player in the NFL and move on.
All right, Colts are at 4. Our buddy Pete Prisco will not leave us alone about trying to. He jokes that you get paid by Alabama. The Kentucky football program must be paying him millions of dollars to pump up,
or the agent,
to pump up Will Levis the manner in which he is. But you have the Colts taking Anthony Richardson, quarterback out of Florida. Why Anthony Richardson over Will Levis for the last time? Hopefully,
yeah. The only thing I'm comparing it to is what Steichen was able to do with Jalen Hurts.
Right.
And this player has probably even better athletic traits. He's bigger. There was some question about Jalen Hurts' accuracy that has improved. He got playmakers around him when they traded for A.J. Brown. So I'm just envisioning the same path that Philly had with and Steichen had success with Jalen Hurts.
Josh, do we have you on record? Who's your QB 2, 3, and 4? I'm assuming CJ's 2, and then how does 3 and 4 sort out?
Yeah, so CJ is number 2, Levis is number 3, and Richardson is number 4.
So if you're the Colts, you're 4, you're taking Will Levis, quarterback Kentucky. Is that what I'm hearing?
That would be who I take. I also think that that's a good possibility of happening in real life. I think it's not out of the question that they would take Levis over CJ Stroud, as much as that is sacrilegious to those evaluating.
Oh, okay, that's it. That's short and sweet on your Will Levis evaluation.
Hey, we got a lot of picks here to make, Ryan.
You
know, it's a long week. We're trying to get in and out of here.
All right, let's do it. All right, Seahawks are on the clock at 5. Jalen Carter's still there. I'm actually taking edge rusher Tyree Wilson, again, assuming he's 100% healthy. Jalen Carter, we talk about celebrating uniqueness in Seattle. I'm just mixing it up here. I think Tyree Wilson, I'll ask you, Rick, more likely to be, let's say both these players play at their peak in 3 years, whatever. More likely to be disruptive, Tyree Wilson or Jalen Carter?
If you get the good Jalen Carter or the football player, then Jalen Carter all the way.
Okay. I'm taking Tyree. How much do you dislike that pick? Are you okay with it?
I'm fine. I mean, you're going the safe route, just like this mock draft is.
Oh, it gets crazy here in a second. Watch this. All right. Lions are on the clock. And Josh, you were going to be Chris Spielman. Who are you taking? You'll be Chris Spielman.
Let me get clarification before I get phone calls.
What?
Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell are calling the shots. My brother is a supporting actor, just like I am on this show.
No, that's right. I was going to add Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell are actually GM and head coach, and Chris Spielman is, much like Rick on this podcast, he serves as eye candy in the facility in Detroit. So let's be clear.
Chris isn't eye candy. I'm eye candy. Chris had to change a direction. That's why he plays so long in the NFL.
Right.
I just was eye candy that was stiffer than a board.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So
with very nice Guayabera shirts.
This one's the best. I'll give you that. So let's just speak generally, Josh, as representing the Lions organization. Who are you taking?
I'm taking Jalen Carter. To me, he's the best prospect available. I think they do value Jared Goff in that organization. Because when they made that trade, what they had to give up in order to make it suggested that they actually value him in that locker room. So I think they're going to stick with Jared Goff. I think they take Jalen Carter here. You pair him with Aiden Hutchinson. Rick's shaking his head. He doesn't like it. James Houston, you've got Aleem McNeil. I think that's a great player to add along that Detroit defensive front.
What are you shaking your head for?
That's absolutely anti-Detroit Lions taking Jalen Carter.
Can I ask you a follow-up, Rick? I'm going to ask you. I'm just being polite. How big pain in the ass is it to get a phone call? Probably. I don't know who calls you, whether it's you see it on Twitter or whether one of your assistants calls you and say, we got some gambling concerns we got to take care of. I mean, is that at the bottom of the list of things you want to be doing as a GM?
Yes, those are the things you have to deal with as a GM, but those are the things you hope you don't have to deal with, especially 3 days before the draft.
Right.
And look at the history of Detroit, how they built their draft. And Brad Holmes has done a phenomenal job being patient, bringing in high quality, high character guys that are, as Dan Campbell likes to say, and we said a few times, knee biters that love the game of football. I believe if they had the number of the 1 overall pick last year, they still would have took Hutchinson because he fits the mold of what they're building that roster with. I don't see, as talented as Jalen Carter can be with the red flags on off, I just don't see it as a fit with the Detroit Lions.
So if Jalen Carter had gone to the Seahawks, you like Tyree Wilson there in terms of
that would be a no-brainer.
Being a fine young man. Okay. All right, Rick, you're up. You are the Raiders general manager, and you have the 7th pick, and you have a ton of needs, mostly on defense.
And I went with Christian Gonzalez. I passed the quarterback because of Garoppolo, because we signed Hoyer as the backup. I'm going to take my chances and not draft a quarterback here. And I'm going to go with a shutdown corner in this draft to help the defense that needs it desperately.
Josh, who's your cornerback 1?
Devin Witherspoon is mine just because I like the way that he plays the position. I mean, you've got the versatility of the awareness to play in zone. You've got the traits to play in man coverage. He's willing to attack the flat. I mean, there's a lot of things to like about his game.
Yeah, I think Rick 1 and 1A for those guys as well. Is that right, Rick?
You win with either one of them.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm trying to fit the personality and the scheme a little bit with. I think Gonzalez is a little better scheme fit with the Raiders. Now, if it was the Lions and they went corner, then it's Witherspoon all the way because he fits the personality and scheme maybe better than Gonzalez. But you're going to be fine with either one of those. I'd be happy with either one of those corners. All
right, let's get crazy. Rick, you said this is boring. I'm about to mix things up. I don't think in the history of the 2023 mock draft cycle has this ever appeared on With the First Pick podcast or even in any of my mock drafts. The Atlanta Falcons with the 8th pick in the 2023 NFL mock draft are taking Will Levis, quarterback out of Kentucky.
Ooh, you're going to get booed more than the commissioner does when he goes to the States.
So listen. Both of you. They took Des Ridder last year in the 3rd round. He was okay when he had in limited duty towards the end of the season when Marcus Mariota went missing. They have Taylor Heineke. I'm going to take a chance here. We like Will Levis. We like him for all the physical attributes that he has. This is not a great football team. We need to put people in the seats, Rick. What is your concern about taking Will Levis? Desmond Ridder, could be like Malik Willis. Like maybe you're ready to move on. Could be like Matt Corral. Maybe you're ready to move on. Not your guy.
They were extremely active in building up this roster in the offseason. This is their 3rd year. They're going to, even though they were in it last year, they weren't a complete team. I think they did a lot of things this offseason to improve the football team, improve the roster.
Yeah.
I would have definitely went with Witherspoon here since he's still on the board. But boy, you're setting your franchise back when you're trying to move forward. And the 3rd year is a critical year to see if they can overtake the AFC South. Now, what if they help their defense, or I don't think they'd go another playmaker on the offensive side of the ball, but I think they're going to do everything they can to get the best players to help them win this year.
So let me push back and ask you this. Let's say the Falcons end up with the 1st overall pick this year. Are you taking Bryce Young?
No.
Really? You're putting all your eggs in the Desmond Ridder basket?
For now.
Let me ask you a conspiracy theory follow-up, sort of based on your for now answer. Let's say, is there any truth to the sort of theory that a coach can draft a coach and a GM can draft a 1st-round pick, quarterback, passer, face the franchise to help extend their careers, maybe give them an extra year because ownership said, well, this is their quarterback. This will give them one more season if things don't go right. the following. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but I think Ritter had shown signs that I believe this organization believes in him.
Yeah.
If they didn't believe in him, then yeah, I would understand. If I had a first overall pick, yeah, I would take Bryce Young in a heartbeat.
Okay.
Because Bryce Young, I love Bryce Young. But I'm just saying where they're at as a franchise and everything they were able to accomplish in the offseason by who they signed, they're building this team around Ritter. And you're going to see Ritter take, I think, steps forward because last year, I believe his size, his athleticism, he ran 4.5s last year, I believe, at the combine, if I recall.
Yep.
And he showed improvement. And it's just a matter of time giving him reps and giving him a chance to grow. You don't draft that guy, and I understand where he was drafted in the 3rd.
Yep.
He was a second quarterback taken off the board.
That's right.
So they believe in him, or else they would not have done a lot of the things that they were doing this offseason, because I think they have a chance to take over a very weak division as of, from what we saw last year. Now, it may change this year. You never know. But as of last year, there's no dominant team in the NFC South. So we're going to go with Ritter, and we're going to continue to build the roster around him.
All right, Josh. Will Levis is your QB3. I'll ask you the same two-parter I asked Rick. Are you okay with the Falcons rolling the dice on him here? And if you had the first overall pick as the Falcons, would you take Bryce Young?
The answer is yes to both of them. I think Atlanta has a good offensive infrastructure. I think they've got a good offensive line. They've got some skill talent that would allow him to potentially ease that transition to the next level. The defense, they're a little bit older in certain areas, but they've made improvements this year. I think if you value one of these quarterbacks, you take him in this spot. But Atlanta historically is a team that they're not going to take a player that they do not feel convicted about. They did not take Justin Fields. They did not take Mac Jones that year that they were both available.
Malik Willis was a talking point last year because he was from Atlanta.
Yeah, so this is a team that's not going to reach at the position. Just me personally, I like Levis. I like the structure that they've got on the offensive side of the ball. I would be comfortable taking him here, and I would absolutely take Bryce Young if I had the number 1 overall pick.
Okay. All right. Well, that's why we have different opinions, and we'll all find out together on Thursday. It would truly be a shock if the Falcons took a quarterback, but I thought I'd mix it up here.
All right, let's say $1 on this one.
No, absolutely not. They're not taking a quarterback unless you want the Falcons taking a quarterback.
No, you took it. I'm saying you must have a conviction to take Will Levis here.
I think they did bring him in. I think they did bring him in for a visit. So would the point of that being, from Atlanta's perspective, just let's try to convince other teams that we're interested in a quarterback, trying to drum up some trade interest?
Yeah, because this isn't an unrestricted free agent thing that you sometimes do, right, Rick? So what are you thinking?
No, it could be that. It could be, a lot of times you don't know, and Brad Holmes said it best in Detroit, we're going to do our due diligence on all these quarterbacks because you don't know down the road, what if 2 or 3 years from now, who thought Jeff Godd or Jared Goff would have got traded to Detroit? Brad Holmes had a history with him because he was in LA at the time, but you don't know. You want to try to accumulate as much information as you can because 2 or 3, who knows where the paths may cross again in this business.
Good point. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll come back and hit the rest of this mock draft after this.
A Paramount Plus subscription is now included with your Walmart Plus membership.
Tell the world what happens when they cross me.
For no additional cost, members get a mountain of entertainment.
Are you accusing me of something?
This is great.
Sign up for a Walmart Plus membership and watch all of this and more with your Paramount Plus subscription.
I'm gonna trust you on this.
All right, for even more draft content, subscribe to the With the First Pick newsletter, formerly known as the Old Pick 6 newsletter, which Chris Trapasso, has hijacked from John Breach for the month of April. Each weekday, Traps hits your inbox with the draft news and notes you need to know. Sign up at cbssports.com/newsletters/pick6. All right, Josh, Bears on the clock at number 9. You have him taking, I'll say, offensive lineman, and you can tell me where exactly you think he plays. Peter Skoronski out of Northwestern. He is the first offensive lineman off the board. What are you thinking here? You have a couple of edge rushers available and you also have some longer, perhaps more athletic offensive linemen as well.
Yeah, so Peter Skoronski is a player that has the versatility to play offensive tackle. He's probably better suited moving inside, in my opinion. I think he could be a tackle at the next level, but I think his real potential is unlocked if you move him inside. So that's probably what I'm going to do. Chicago may be inclined to try him at right tackle because they need a solution there. But to me, I think his ceiling is much higher if you were to move him inside. But the reason for this pick is because I need to have an answer on Justin Fields after this upcoming season. It's an important year for both Fields and the organization. I need to know if he's going to be my quarterback moving forward because you've got some really good quarterbacks in next year's draft class. So I need to know if I need to make a move for one of those players next year or if Fields is my guy moving forward. So I'm going to add some to his supporting cast. You've already brought in DJ Moore. Let's add to that offensive line and give him a chance this upcoming season so we can properly evaluate him.
Where are you putting him, at tackle or guard?
I'm sliding him inside the guard personally, but I could understand if they start him at right tackle.
Right tackle?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why'd you say it like that, Rick? What are you thinking?
No, everybody. Wait. Where's my cue card? To
You lost it.
Tebow always sends to me. I respect every opinion and work that you guys have done on this show. I cannot say what I said last time because I will get in trouble.
Yeah,
Emory Hunt was on the show, and I said it was all. I can't say it anymore.
Emory made him
Tebow will
curse.
yell at me.
Yeah,
I thought Braxton Jones did an adequate job at left tackle. I think it would represent a bigger upgrade if you put him on the right side.
How hard is it? And I'm asking your opinion, Josh.
Yeah.
That a guy that is a top 10 pick that plays at a left tackle position, may move inside the guard, but why are you drafting a guy and trying to move him over to the other side and he may not be as effective? Or do you think he'll be just as effective as a right tackle?
Well, that's why I'm sliding him inside personally, but I think he has the mental acumen, the technique to move and make that transition to the right side. Most players, I would not feel comfortable in making that transition, but I think this is a player that is going to put in the work and be able to make it at a fairly adequate level.
So if he is let's just say a very, what we used to call red or blue type player, which you can line up and start and play very well at that position because you did that, and all of a sudden you move him and he cannot play to that same level because you moved him out to a brand new position he's never played before. Does that concern you at all? And all of a sudden he's playing below that top 10 pick?
No, it's absolutely a concern. I mean, that's going to fall back on the decision maker. But to me,
yeah, no kidding.
Well, you've got to be convicted. So if you don't have a conviction in your own pick, you're probably in the wrong business anyway. So I'm putting him in the interior offensive line personally. We've seen former college tackles, Joel Bitonio, Joe Thuney, make that transition to the inside and do it at a very high level. So for me personally, I think he can play tackle. That's why I'm making that argument. But I think he's better served to move inside where he can really be that Pro Bowl, all-pro caliber player that I think he can be.
All right. And Peter Skoronski's been in the first offensive lineman drafted conversation going back to the fall. So this isn't – the only question is where does he end up? Pick 10, Rick, you're the Eagles. You're taking defensive lineman because depending on how much he weighs will determine where he plays probably. Lucas Van Ness out of Iowa. Why did you take Lucas Van Ness, who never started a game in Iowa, over my guy, running back Bijan Robinson out of Texas?
Because you said that he should go back to school. So I'm trying to make a point.
So you're trying to make a point.
And you look at that, the reason that they won last year was because of their offensive line and their defensive line. And defensive line, you need a rotation. There's not going to be a guy that lines up for 16 games and plays 60 snap every game. The most successful defensive line, the most successful opportunity to pressure the quarterback is to have enough guys that are in a rotation that you can keep fresh, that you keep bringing them off the bench and keep going. This kid has got a chance to sit and he will be in a rotation. He doesn't have to come in and start right away. You know, you got Graham, you got Reddick, you got Barnett.
Mm-hmm.
Graham and Barnett are long in the tooth and at the end for maybe one more year. And then you got Sweat, who also is a very good player. So you get a chance to work behind two veteran offensive linemen. You get a chance to be in a rotation. He can help you outside. He can help you inside. He's going to grow. And then you're looking at year 2 where he becomes the full-time starter and the player that everybody anticipates that he will be. So I'm taking care of my line when I have an opportunity, because it gets a little slim pickings after you get too far down, and you have to take someone that has this much position flexibility.
No, that's a good point. And we talk a lot about Bijan Robinson. Haven't talked nearly as much about Jahmyr Gibbs as a first-round pick, but there's a chance that perhaps he sneaks to the first round. Different type running back out of Alabama, but extremely versatile, and he's extremely slippery. All right, pick 11.
We didn't ask Debo. Were you okay with that?
Oh, yeah, Debo.
Debo?
That gets a D grade from me, Ryan.
He wants Bijan, I bet. Do you want Bijan there?
I've talked to myself. Well, Skoronski went off the board. I've talked myself into Jackson Smith and Jigba.
What?
I'm sick of Quez Watkins. I'm sick of him.
Just we'll go back to producing, okay, and being a bandwagon fan that you are.
Wow. What if they got? No, they can't. What if they got Jackson Smith and Jigba and Jahmyr Gibbs with their 30th pick? That would be something.
They're not going to be able to block anyone or rush the passer, but other than that, they'll be fine.
They'll be fine.
Oh my God, they got the best O-line and D-line in football last year.
I know, but you have to take care of your line when you can, Debo.
He called you out by name. All right, Titans at 11. Maybe I should take Bijan here because it sounds like Derrick Henry is going to be traded. I mean, that of all the things that the Titans might do, that seems like it would be the worst case scenario for that offense. But whatever, that's just conjecture on the Twitter machine. So who knows how much truth there is to that? Instead, I went with Paris Johnson Jr. He's still available at 11. I could go. Obviously, I could have gone. Wide receiver here as well. That's a need, but Paris Johnson Jr., to Rick's point, you got to have people blocking for you. I'm going to go with the athletic left tackle who also has position flexibility, played right guard 2 years ago. I don't think anyone has any issues with this, so we're going to move forward.
I do. I got a question for you. Are you talking in your draft room to potentially trade up and go get one of these quarterbacks?
Yes.
Or what one of the quarterbacks drop to you?
Yes. So here's the thing. If I were smart and had Will Levis going number 2 to the Texans, which maybe happens in real life, and CJ's dropping, if I'm the Titans, I'm trying to move up. So the Cardinals would be a spot, and they're not in your division, so that makes things a little easier. Obviously, the Texans and the Colts are in your division, so they might make things difficult for you in terms of charging you a premium. So absolutely, if CJ gets past 2, maybe the Cardinals is a landing spot, and I don't think that's too far to go up, right, Rick? If that's your quarterback.
Not if from 11 to 2.
Yeah. So,
So where do you play Paris?
What are you talking
You playing
about?
him at left tackle?
oh yeah, I'm Andre Dillard. I mean, Debo can give you a breakdown of why Andre Dillard is no longer with the Eagles. I'm not sold on him as a long-term solution, especially going to a run-heavy team and he can't run block.
Don't ask Debo. He just wanted Philly to take Smith and Jigba.
I'm actually on board. If they take Smith.
He's drafting for his fantasy team.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a fantasy team. You get Smith and Jigba and then Jahmyr Gibbs. My goodness. Yeah,
I do agree. I do agree that Johnson's a better player, but they did give him a lot of money. So that's one of the situations that I was trying to work through in my own mock draft is where you play both of those guys.
Which Johnson are you talking about?
Paris.
What do you mean they gave him a lot of money?
No, they gave Andre Dillard a lot of money.
Oh, gotcha. I was like, wait, Paris got paid a lot of money already?
They gave him a short-term deal. It wasn't a lot of money. It was a chunk of change, but
yeah, worst case or maybe best case.
Juwan Taylor money is what I'm saying.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, Juwan Taylor's big boy money. All right, pick 12, Josh, you're on the clock. The Texans, Smith and Jigba still out there. That's been a popular landing spot. Who are you taking?
So I'm taking Devin Witherspoon. I mean, he's still available here. I know you took Derek Stingley Jr. this past year, but if he's your best player available, which he is for me at this point in time, that's the direction you have to go. I would love to get one of these edge rushers, one of these interior defenders, but the run on the position has already happened. So for me, I'm taking Witherspoon because he's sitting atop my board.
So, Rick, Smith and Jigba still out there, but you say all the time, never have enough edge rushers or cornerbacks, and Devin Witherspoon is going to be cornerback 1 for some teams. How do you like the idea of C.J. Stroud and then doubling back and get Devin Witherspoon?
Yeah, I would agree with that because I think Witherspoon's unique. And if you have him and Stingley, if Stingley can stay healthy, you have 2 pretty good shutdown corners for your defense. And you just hired a young, dynamic defensive coach.
All right, love it. Pick 13, the Jets are on the clock. And just to recap, in case you missed it, if you're watching or listening, or if you're Josh Edwards, and the Emory Hunt mock draft, he had the Jets taking DeJuan Jones, and that's what sent Rick over the edge. Rick, are you going to go down that path again, or are you going to go in a different direction?
Oh, well, please. Yeah,
Right.
he was Becton, who hadn't been able to line up maybe 2 games since he's been there, and he wants to roll the dice on him one more year. I'm taking left tackle Broderick Jones with no hesitation.
Out of Georgia, we've talked before that he may not be ready to go from day one, but he has probably the highest upside of this group. And if he stays healthy, he will already be a success over some previous first-round picks that I will not mention, though. You just call them out. We don't know what's going on with Aaron Rodgers. And, Rick, I don't think you think it's going to be this pick that perhaps gets sent to Green Bay. But at the end of the day, I mean, I don't know when it's going to happen. I'm tired of talking about it, to be honest with you. All right, pick 14. This is where my guy comes off the board because, Rick, you didn't take him at 10. The Patriots are taking running back Bijan Robinson out of Texas. Here's my thought process. You messed up my guy Mac Jones by having a defensive coordinator call plays last year. And now is he with the Eagles now, Debo? Oh, my gosh, I heard Matt Patricia call plays in Philadelphia.
He's a new offensive coordinator. Debo wants Smith and Jigba while Matt Patricia's calling offensive plays.
He's gonna make
Way to
him
go,
pissed.
Debo.
Rick is fired up. But here's my thinking.
I'm fired up on Debo today.
I mean, I'm just happy Rick said Jared Goff instead of Jeff Goff today.
We're at the point in the draft process where everyone's on edge. So I want to see how far down this road we get. Luckily, we're not in the same room because Rick might start throwing on guys.
I wouldn't want to mess up my Guayabera shirt.
No, you don't want to get anyone's blood on your newfound shirts. But I'm going Bijan Robinson because Bill O'Brien's back calling plays. Mac Jones is going into year 3. He's got to get right because he's making me look bad. And I think the easiest way to help a young quarterback is to run the football. They could go Darnell Wright here. We've talked about that before, the right tackle at Tennessee. But I'm going to add a little offense, go along with Ramondre Stevenson. I know this is a pretty deep running back class, but there's only one Bijan Robinson. He's a workhorse back, sort of the type back that you feel like would go to New England and have success. And it was a pretty easy choice for me. All right, Josh.
That was a bad, easy pick for you.
We'll see. It couldn't be any worse than having your defensive guy call offensive plays. In fact, Matt Patricia might still have a job if he had Bijan Robinson back there. All right, Rick.
Block somebody up front. A running back is not invisible. He can't disappear and run through people like a ghost. You have to have someone to create some holes up front.
This guy runs through arm tackles like he's the only person on the offensive side of the ball. That's how good he is. So that's why I'm not concerned about it.
Okay.
It's called learning the game, Rick.
Oh, God, I am on this podcast.
All right, pick 15. The Packers are bucking conventional wisdom over the last 21 years, Josh, and they're taking wide receiver Jackson Smith and Jigba out of Ohio State. I know what your thought process is, but what do you think the chances this actually happens?
I think it's better than we expect, actually, because when Aaron Rodgers was named the starter in 2008, that's a team that had James Jones, Donald Driver. I mean, they had some pieces on that side of the ball, and yet they drafted Jordy Nelson, number 36 overall, traded back from number 30 overall to take him, and then they took Jermichael Finley, the tight end, in the 3rd round. So this is a team that has shown they are willing to take skill talent to invest in a young quarterback. That's the thought process here. I want to instill confidence in Jordan Love. That's my objective for the upcoming season, is to give him some confidence going into the following year, and really, give us a chance to compete, because this is a roster that has some needs. But first and foremost, I want to give Jordan Love some confidence and identify that he's our quarterback moving forward.
Hey, Rick, can I ask you, so that was the Tua Justin Herbert draft, and Jordan Love was in that group. How'd you feel about Jordan Love coming out?
He had ability. Nevada. I actually went and saw him play live.
Yeah.
In Frisco, Texas. I can't remember, against Kent State. But there was all the physical traits that you look for in a quarterback. We didn't do much work on him at the time, but he did have ability. So I'm anxious to see when he does take over, because I thought when he played a little bit last year, he showed signs just like Ritter, but you want to can Ritter right away. So I imagine you want to can Jordan Love as well.
I like Jordan coming out.
Pull the trigger on these guys. But I'm anxious to see Jordan Love, and I do agree he does need some weapons. I may have leaned. I can see Smith and Jigba, but I also may have leaned towards Kincaid here because of his unique receiving skills at a position of need for them as well.
Yeah, Jordan Love out of Utah State. Also, by the way, that was a Jalen Hurts draft that everyone thought was a joke in the second round. Turns out Howie Roseman was not joking around at all. All right, pick 16, the Commanders on the clock. Rick, they have huge needs at cornerback. What are you doing?
Well, since you screwed it up and took Bijan Robinson with the Patriots, I'm taking right tackle that would have helped my team win a lot more ball games, and I went with Darnell Wright here.
Out of Tennessee. Now, you said I screwed it up. Do you mean the Commanders would have considered Bijan, or that the Patriots should have taken Darnell Wright?
The Patriots should have taken Darnell Wright. They don't have a starting right tackle right now. And Darnell Wright steps in right away and is immediate day one starter for them and sets the tone up front, because I think he's one of the most physical offensive linemen coming out in this year's draft. So, and he took tremendous strides from his junior year where he played left tackle. Then they moved him over to the right side and found a home. And this guy has continued to ascend through this pre-draft process.
All right, pick 17. Only 2 cornerbacks off the board. Our 2 favorite, Christian Gonzalez and Devin Witherspoon. The Steelers are on the clock, and I would have taken Darnell Wright here. That's what Sneak Peek BMAC and I did. Brian McFadden in our Steelers only 7-round mock draft. BMAC GM'd his way into taking Darnell Wright, which somehow miraculously no one had any negative opinions on in terms of the fan base, which is unheard of, but whatever. He's gone here. So instead, I'm taking Emmanuel Forbes, all 166 pounds of him. And Josh, as a Browns fan and longtime hater of all things Steelers, how does this pick make you feel, I guess? Because that's one of the true gauges of whether it's a good pick or not. How does the opposing fan base think about it?
Well, I mean, he's got incredible ball skills. 6 interceptions returned for touchdowns over the course of his career. I think he had 14 interceptions total. So I don't love the fact that he's able to make plays on the football if you're in that division. But I also wonder if you're going to be welcome back in Pittsburgh, because you pass over Joey Porter Jr. to take Emmanuel Forbes here.
Rick, who are you taking here at cornerback 3 if you're the Steelers and you want to get a cornerback?
Yeah, I've been pretty consistent with Joey Porter Jr., and maybe I don't want to get emotional on the podcast.
All right.
With the legacy and everything else.
But wait a second. Now, Rick, ball skills are incredibly important. Joey Porter Jr. does not have much in the way of turnover production, and we know that Emmanuel Forbes does.
He's a big physical corner that I think fits Pittsburgh Steelers style of play.
No, I don't disagree with that. I fell in love with the ball production. The 166.
Yeah, no, I do too. I love Emmanuel Forbes.
Yeah.
I was the one you didn't even know who he was till I told you about him in the fall.
That's true. No, that's right. I will give you that. All right, pick 18. The Lions are on the clock. Josh, you'll be picking for the entire Lions organization. You also were the Lions GM, head coach, owner, and eye candy back at pick 6, where you took Jalen Carter. What are you doing at pick 18?
Well, hopefully this one gets a little bit more favor from Rick. I'm taking Deonte Banks, the cornerback from Maryland. I have him rated a little bit higher than Joey Porter Jr. here, so that's the reason for my pick. They've made some additions at the cornerback position this offseason, but I think Banks is a player that gives you a little bit more stability long-term.
So, Rick, the word on the street, and I don't take this for what it's worth, is that Deion Banks, teams are hiring him than perhaps the media thinks. We've talked about him for a while, and we like him. Do you like this fit? Because he's a physical, fast cornerback.
Yep, and he'll fit. And they traded Akuda to Atlanta, who, you took Will Levis to when they were trying to build their roster around to win now. But don't worry about that.
We'll be fine. We'll be fine.
It will be fine. So, yeah, I do like this pick a lot. Okay,
pick 19. Rick, you are the Buccaneers, and I mean, they have quarterback needs, they have offensive line needs. Our guy Darnell Wright's already gone at right tackle. He would have made a lot of sense there. Our buddy Pete Prisco wants to move Tristan Wirfs over to the left side, and he probably has the athleticism to do that. But as you talked about with Peter Skoronski, it's not just easy snapping your fingers. Either way, what are you doing at pick 19 for the Buccaneers?
Well, because I felt bad for you when you took Will Levis to the Falcons, so I gave you a gift, and
you did.
I did not take Hooker here, which in all my right mind I should have. But instead, I went with flexibility with Brian Branch, safety, corner, Nick. And I do think they need help in the secondary. And this was a player that I think can help their defense. And I like, Antoine Winfield Jr. I think he's a heck of a football player, but some of the guys that they have in the secondary have had durability concerns. So I understand that Brian Branch did not test as well as everybody anticipated, but I'm not going to pass up a very good football player on the defensive side of the ball. Although I expect a check in the mail from you for leaving Hendon Hooker there for you to take the next pick. That's a tease if you do take him the next pick.
I didn't send you a check, but I sent you a with the first pick T-shirt. That's in the mail. Just keep checking your mailbox. If it doesn't show up, it'll come the next day, I promise. So what I'm hearing, Rick, is that pick 19 is not too high to take Hendon Hooker in real life?
No.
Ooh-wee. Love it. And by the way, Josh, I don't know if you've heard this on previous podcasts. I'm not sure if he talked about it out loud before, but Rick's son played on a high school football team in, was it Minneapolis, Rick?
Eden Prairie, Minnesota.
Antoine Winfield was on that
Good
team.
program.
The edge rusher that went to Minnesota, I can't remember his name. Carter Coughlin was on that team, right?
Yep. Ryan Conley, who's been bouncing around. The Jets undersigned
Jermaine
Cashman.
Johnson was on that team.
Yeah.
Blake Cashman was on that team.
Jeez, a pizza. And they
It's a really good program.
They lost exactly 0 games in 3 years. Is that right?
Yeah, they end up losing after a lot of those guys left, but they were pretty unstoppable in the state of Minnesota.
Good Lord. So that's something else. Fun story.
They had some really, really good athletes.
Man, that's crazy. All right. Pick 20. And Josh, I don't know if you noticed there, Rick did something that they call in the business a tease. Because the Seahawks, who at number 5, I had them taking Tyree Wilson. Now they get Hendon Hooker, quarterback out of Tennessee, despite the fact that he's 25, despite the fact that he tore his ACL late last fall. The good news, Rick, as you've been pointing out for a while, in fact, you talk about Anthony Richardson to the Seahawks at 5 in this situation, but he can go get healthy behind Geno Smith, sit for a year. I don't think you want to sit Hendon for 2 years because of his age, but maybe next year after the season, you reevaluate. Let's say Geno Smith has a similar type year as he did this year. Are you thinking about trading Geno if you're Seattle? Or are you going to roll another year with Geno as your quarterback and make Hendon sit for 2 years? What are you thinking?
Yeah, no, I'm just going to assess where we're at the end of the season. If Geno has another year, it doesn't hurt. I understand the concern with the age, and maybe that would have been 5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
Now with the protection that the quarterbacks have in this league, you're seeing them play a lot longer. They're trying to keep them on the field because that's what brings the fans. So I believe that, the age is not as big of concern as it was maybe 5 or 6 years ago.
I'm guessing Hendon's your QB5, Josh? I can't imagine it'll be someone else, but let's see.
Yep,
Yeah.
He is.
Any concerns beyond the age?
Not other than coming off the torn ACL, but even that is something that's overblown now because of how far medicine and technology has come over the years.
Right.
The offensive structure is going to be a little bit of a transition, but I also have confidence that he has the mental acumen, the preparation, the want to be able to make that transition.
Yeah, Rick actually has admitted before on the podcast, and he said it at the time, he was blown away after our 15-minute conversation with him on the set. Like you took a lot away from that, right, Rick?
Yeah, no, and the intangibles and everything reminded me a lot of, and I've said this in the past, of Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah, high praise.
On intangibles, smarts, leadership, intelligence, everything from A to Z on the intangible side. To me, this kid is just like Teddy Bridgewater.
All right, let's take a quick break, and then we'll get to the final 11 picks right after this. All right, Josh, you're on the clock. You're the Los Angeles Chargers, pick 21. I love the idea of Bijan Robinson going here. He's obviously off the board, so that's not going to happen. You could take a wide receiver. You could take a tight end. What are you choosing to do?
Yeah, you're kind of making my point for me because as I dug into this team a little bit more, I realized there's a number of directions you could go for this organization. Add a little bit more speed at the wide receiver position, tight end. But I went with defensive tackle Brian Bresee from Clemson because that's also an area on this roster that they have been unable to address under Brandon Staley. I think you add a player that has tremendous upside at the position. It's incredibly difficult to find those impact players to play the interior defensive line. And I think Brezzy, if you get the best version of him, although, you're taking a little bit of a risk, you're getting one of those caliber players. So for me, that's the direction I went. I had him one pick or one spot ahead of Joey Porter. So those were kind of the two players I was considering here.
Yeah.
JC Jackson was unable to stay healthy this past year. I mean, they need some long-term vision at the edge rusher position to eventually replace Khalil Mack, add a little bit of depth. So this is a team that, Sneaky has a lot of options that they could go in the first round. Bijan, as you mentioned, but he was off the board. But I went with Brezzy because he was the best player available in an area where I thought they could use some upgrade.
No, makes sense. Had a tough season last year, but there are a lot of reasons for that we've talked about on the podcast prior. Pick 22, Rick, if you're the Ravens, at what point would you like to have some clarity on what Lamar Jackson's going to do?
Yeah, hopefully sooner the better, but I don't think you're going to get clarity until right before the season, to be honest with you.
Oh, okay. So you're going into this draft understanding that, fingers crossed, we have our quarterback, so we're just going to fill out the rest of the roster?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're not letting him go. They don't sign OBJ and some of the things that they've done to build the skill position to help Lamar Jackson. So that they have no intention of trying to trade Lamar Jackson, in my opinion.
I haven't asked you. I don't think I've asked you this, but if I have, I've forgotten, obviously. Have you ever had to deal with a player negotiation-wise who did not have an agent?
No. We always work through a representative, although I know how difficult that could be.
The non-agent part.
Yes.
Yeah, I would imagine it just complicates things. Although, I don't know if you work with the agent's a lot of fun either, so it just might make matters worse.
It's part of the process, but at least you have someone, the in-between person
Right.
that you can negotiate with, and he can relay back. And, it makes it as hard as it still can be, depending on the agent you're working with. At least you have a middleman in between.
Is it fair to say, like, when you're talking to an agent about a player, you can say, well, player X didn't do X, Y, and Z that we wanted him to do, and the numbers bear it out? Do you say they have those sorts of conversations?
Yeah, no, you can have probably a more frank conversation
Right.
with the agent than if you're dealing directly with the player, because you got to be very careful about burning the bridge. And usually
Right.
an agent can
Massage it.
massage it or kind of turn it in a different direction where he knows that he can handle the player. He knows the player's personality and how he can phrase it or do it or talk through the scenario with the player to help him guide him through it.
Right. So I would imagine that's another layer of stickiness. That's, it's only a matter of time before you step in some dog doo-doo and make the player angry because you said something that they don't want to hear. But that's a conversation for another time. All right, Rick, you're now picking for the Ravens. You're assuming that your quarterback's coming back. Who are you taking?
I'm taking a corner, and Joey Porter's still on there. Ravens like big physical corners. Joey Porter, 6'2" corner, fits their style of corner that they play with. So to me, this was a no-brainer. I need a corner, and I'm taking Joey Porter.
Cornerback out of Penn State. And if you want to hear Rick and Bryant McFadden, our cornerback from CBS Sports HQ, two-time Super Bowl champ for the Steelers, talk about these corners, these safeties. You can see that podcast or listen to it. It's in the feed. Pick 23, the Vikings. The Vikings also need a corner. And my guy...
Oh, God.
What do you mean? I'd like him since the
You
fall.
just can't help yourself, can you?
He's going to go in the first round. I'm telling you.
Oh, $1?
Yeah, let's do $1. I don't feel great about it. Let's do $1 on that, Debo. My guy, Julius Brents, cornerback out of Kansas State, 6'3", 34-inch arms, 4.53. That doesn't necessarily blow your hair back, but his three-cone and short shuttle were among the best at the combine among the defensive backs. This is a good young man, Rick. Good young man.
Fine young man.
So Patrick P. has gone to the Steelers, so I'm replacing some help. They need some help in the secondary with Julius Brents. That's so crazy?
I just don't think that's a first-round talent. I'm sorry.
I don't think you're sorry. I think you're just saying that to make me feel better. All right,
Josh.
Josh.
I'm trying to make you feel worse, to be honest with you, if you really want to know.
I appreciate your honesty. Josh, where are you on Julius Brents?
So I think I have him late second round, early third round, somewhere in there.
All right. Go on.
Well, I think this is a draft class that you can kind of make arguments for players like this at the same time, because I think there is probably a lot of volatility in how teams see these individual players. So I do think we're going to see some names that we don't necessarily talk about in the first round, more
Yeah.
so this year than we have previous years. I mean, nobody saw Cole Strange a year ago, even the Rams, based on their reaction.
Yeah.
So I think we will see some of those picks made in the first round. Brent, I understand he's got the traits. I just value him a little bit later.
Okay, fair enough.
Boy,
See,
you're
Rick,
like politically correct on this podcast.
I was going to say that's
How
how
do you
you
really
very
feel, Josh? Do you
that's how
think
you
it's a
very
reach?
politely.
Do you think it's a reach? Do you think Ryan reached on this pick?
I would personally not make this pick.
See, Rick, that's how you do it politely, so you don't hurt people's feelings, because we're all
All
about.
right, I'll go to the seminar. I blew off the seminar too many times. Apparently, I have to be more politically correct on this podcast and not be as sarcastic, because I do appreciate all the hard work and
There it
energy
is.
that you guys put into this show.
That said, Josh, just so we're clear, Rick has come around on Julius Brents. He likes him more than he did in the fall. Is that at least fair to say, Rick?
Yeah, I'm picking from a Saturday pick to a Friday pick.
Okay, fair enough. He may very, very well end up
As
going
long as he
around.
doesn't have to cover Quentin Johnson, we'll be fine. The receiver from TCU.
Yeah, one of the best receivers in college football. He
Hopefully
struggled.
he doesn't have to cover Justin Jefferson during training camp.
Yeah, that might not do a lot for his confidence. Although Garrett Wilson told us at the Super Bowl that he thought he was terrible because he had to go up against Sauce Gardner in training camp, and that just goes to show you they're good players on both sides of the ball. Rick,
They are.
learn the game. Learn the game. All right, Josh, you're up.
Learned so much.
Pick 24. The Jaguars are on the clock. They need offensive line help. They need tight end help. You can even go defensive back here. Brian Branch is gone, unfortunately for them. Who you have the Jaguars taking at pick 24?
Similar thought process to what I had Green Bay doing. I'm going to give Trevor Lawrence, Dalton Kincaid, the tight end out of Utah, give him a little bit more pass catching ability. A guy with a little bit more length. They need some size on that side of the ball. Evan Ingram is playing on the franchise tag this coming year, so you're not committed to him long term. Maybe this is an opportunity for them to, save some salary cap space in the future and honestly get a little bit of a better player that's, I can't say has been more consistent because of the injury, but a player that I think has the upside to be a consistent performer for them down the road. But one thing I'll say about Kincaid, I made this argument for the Packers like a month or two ago, and Rick pushed back on it quite a bit. Now, Kincaid is the guy that he mentioned as possibly being a fit for Green Bay instead of Jackson Smith and Jigba, who I took this week. So Rick changing tunes a little bit there on Dalton Kincaid to the Packers.
Yeah, after I figured out that he doesn't have a broken back, that makes a whole big difference.
I will add that Brian Brezzi, if he were not off the board at this point,
Brazil.
he is Brezzi. Okay, so Brezzi would be
I've been practicing that.
The ideal fit for Jacksonville based on Trent Baalke's history, because he has traditionally gone for those players coming off a torn ACL. He loves those athletic traits. So this is a Trent Baalke pick all day.
I love that. Also, shout out to Rick for correcting Brian Brzez's pronunciation. I love that as well.
It's the only name I know how to say properly. I'm horrible at names.
So, Rick, I'm going to ask you about Dalton Kincaid. You mentioned the back appears to be all clear and teams remain high on him. But so you said this about Emory the other day. You said he talks out of both sides of his mouth. Now, Jalen Hyatt, you don't like that only he's a one-year productivity guy. Where has he been? Dalton Kincaid's in that same bucket, and he's older. So explain the differences.
Because Dalton Kincaid, did he not transfer from somewhere?
San Diego, I think.
Yes. So, but when he came to Utah, he was with a bigger program and he responded, where Hyatt has been at Tennessee, has been invisible. And luckily, I don't want to say luckily, I shouldn't say that. That's not proper.
He had a break go his way.
With Tillman getting injured, all of a sudden he had an opportunity to shine. Would he have shined the same if Tillman, the other receiver from Tennessee, who's a very good football player, did not get hurt?
Yeah, and Tillman has a chance to be he might go in the second round.
But you could say the same thing about Kincaid, right? There's another tight end, and then Kincaid got his opportunity and took advantage of it. So yeah. I'm kind of speaking out of both sides of my mouth here too. Yeah, but I think Kincaid, because of the transfer, took advantage of when he transferred. And Hyatt has been at Tennessee, and then all of a sudden came on the scene when he should have been on the scene a lot sooner.
No, and I'll give you credit for that because he was at FCS program. He wasn't at San Diego State. He was at San Diego. So he played there a few years and then transferred. I'm looking at his bio from San Diego. So yeah, it wasn't like he went from, Mountain West to SEC. He went from FCS to Pac-12, which is probably a pretty big transition for him. And he eventually got his opportunity and showed up. But I like Jalen Hyatt as well, so I'm not going to hold that against him either. All right, Rick, pick 25. The Giants on the clock. They desperately need a center. What are you going to do?
Well, I'm not going to take a center here.
Can I interrupt you quickly? You've been preaching how you have to protect people, your quarterback, and so on and so forth. So what are you doing?
I need to get my quarterback that I just spent, Danny Dimes, some weapons on the offensive side of the ball, and Quentin Johnson going to fill that need. So he was my next best player on the board, and I went with Quentin Johnson. Now they re-signed Slayton. They signed Paris Campbell, so they're trying to get offense. He's more of a slot gadget guy. I don't think he's a true outside guy. They signed Jeff Smith from the Jets, but they're not Quentin. And it was a disaster when they signed Golladay. He was never able to get healthy and be on the field. So this gives him an outside vertical threat with a receiver that has a high upside. Clean up some of the concentration drops, but this guy gives them another weapon on the offensive side of the ball.
Yep, Quentin Johnson, wide receiver out of TCU, and you've said this before. I'll just repeat it. I like Zay Flowers as well, but Zay Flowers basically is in the same bucket as the other players in the roster you currently mentioned. So it's not like
you're Robinson is coming off an ACL, but
right.
That they drafted a slot receiver last year who's an explosive playmaker.
And by the way, all three of us were at the Will Levis Pro Day, Kentucky, and Wandale Robinson was there, and Josh pointed him out to me. He's smaller than I am. Like, he is tiny. So you don't need a bunch of tiny guys running around as your receiver. I don't think. I mean, I feel like having big guys would help. All right, pick 26, Cowboys. Rick, tell me what you think. I'm taking linebacker Jack Campbell.
What are you doing?
Not Drew Sanders, Jack Campbell out of Iowa, linebacker. Why'd you say, what am I doing?
Well, because you still have Michael Mayer on the board. They don't have a tight end right now. Am I not mistaken?
You're correct.
Take the tight end.
They have Jake Ferguson, but here's what I'll throw it back at you. Is there more depth at linebacker or more depth at tight end in this draft?
You can get all these linebackers. They're going to be good linebackers with your pick in the second round. So
yeah, actually, you're right. Dalen Henley will be there probably.
Yeah, and he's a heck of a football player. There's a lot of good linebackers on Friday that you're going to be able to get. So I went with Mayer because after that, I think there is a little bit of a drop off. Musgrave, we've talked about on this podcast. Laporta, I mean, your guy. I mean, you passed him up as well.
Darnell Washington
from Iowa.
Yep.
So, but boy, that was a little bit of a reach for me taking Jack Campbell here.
Josh, what do you think about Jack Campbell compared to, I don't know who your linebacker one is, minus Drew Sanders, but I mix it up here with Jack Campbell.
I like Drew Sanders as a fit a little bit more for Dallas just because he offers a little bit more versatility. I like what Dan Quinn could do with him in that system. Jack Campbell, I think, probably goes in the second round. That's kind of where I see him in this class. I actually see the Giants and the Bills as possibilities for him, though, if you're looking at possibilities in the first round, just because those are a couple of teams that are looking for a little size at the position. Buffalo, of course, losing Tremaine Edmonds in free agency. So I wouldn't be surprised if Jack Campbell goes in the first round. I think that is certainly one of the names that could get some traction there in the latter portion of the first round. I just personally think that Sanders would be a better fit in that system.
All right, fair enough. Can I do a dollar bet on that Jack Campbell does not go in the first round with these two yahoos?
Yeah, I'll take Jack Campbell going first round just for fun, so you can get back in this competition because you're
down like $30 to 1.
All right, well, it's going to be 31 to 1 in a second, I guess. Yeah, I'll take Jack Campbell in the first round, Debo. All right, pick 27. The Bills are on the clock here, and I can't believe this player's still sitting here. Josh, you have him taking Osiris Torrance, guard out of Florida.
Yeah, Buffalo hasn't, traditionally made a significant investment in the offensive line. So that's kind of the idea here, is to provide some protection for Josh Allen. Zay Flowers, the wide receiver from Boston College, is the other player that I considered here, just because we've seen the impact that a quality slot receiver can have on the Buffalo offense. So I think you can get that player in the second round. I don't think you can get a comparable player to an Osiris Torrance in the second round. So that's the decision that I made here at number 27 overall.
Yeah, I think, Rick, if you're okay, if Osiris clears, it's 100% healthy and all that, I think 27 to the Bills makes a lot of sense, right?
No,
All
not
right.
at all.
Not even a little bit. What were you doing here then?
Zay Flowers all the way. They need another offensive weapon for Josh Allen. And I think Osiris probably may go before them, but he's a guard only. They signed Connor McGovern in the offseason. But you're going to take another swing at some of these guys in the second round too. Steve Avila, who I think can come in and start right away.
Yep.
If he's still around there, I think there'll be some guards there, center guard combinations. There's Tippmann, there's, John Michael Schmitz, who I really like. So there's a lot of potential guys there in the second round. But to me, Zay Flowers is unique compared to the rest of the slot receivers in this draft. There are some good slot receivers, but Zay Flowers is a unique player for his size and would be a huge upgrade for Buffalo.
Okay, fair enough. I don't hate the Osiris Torrance pick, but Rick, you want to take Zay Flowers there, and I get it. Zay's a good football player. Pick 28, the Bengals are on the clock. Rick, you can finally take your tight end and give Joe Burrow yet another weapon. You went with Michael Mayer, tight end out of Notre Dame, and he is tight end 2, I believe, in this mock draft. So he didn't go first, but he does go 28, bottom of the first round. Yeah,
no brainer. They need a tight end. If Branch was still sitting there, I'd consider that because of the versatility. A lot like the kid they drafted out of Michigan last year. Not as fast, but with Mayer there, and I need a tight end. I'm taking him. Good football player.
Yep, I agree. Solid, as you like to call him, and I think that's a great description. Pick 29, I have the Saints taking Myles Murphy. For some reason, he continues to slip down these boards. We had him going in the top 10 several months ago, and we've gone through the pre-draft process. He hasn't really hurt himself with his testing. And Rick, you've sort of joked about this generally in the past. Sometimes players can be too smart, and you get the sense, at least through the media, that maybe he's too smart. His brother's an electrical engineer, I believe, or a mechanical engineer. He takes academics very seriously. What does that mean, too smart?
I don't want to say, I don't want to make it as a negative comment or a derogatory comment.
Yeah.
But he was as one of the most classiest kids we interviewed at the combine. So I was just kind of making fun a little bit. And sometimes we would make fun that, God, he's going to make more money potentially being a chemical or an astronaut engineer, if that's such a Tebow, is that astronaut engineer? Is that a profession or no?
I think that's what Josh Dobbs was, right? Pretty much.
Yeah, he was. I think he was a nuclear physicist or something. Don't ask Tebow. Tebow went to Penn State. He doesn't know what astronaut engineers are. All right, pick 30. I like Myles Murphy, by the way. I think he's a huge upside guy.
Yep.
Great. Rick, yeah, and by the way, Rick, he's 6'5", not 6'3", 275, ran to the 4.5, so there's a lot to love there. All right, Rick, I'm going to give you a choose draft A or draft B because I know you're going to be super pumped about this. So the Eagles take Lucas Van Ness at 10. That was your pick. And then they circle back and get Nolan Smith at 30. This is Josh's pick, the edge rusher out of Georgia. Would you rather have these two players here, or would you rather have Smith and Jigba and Jahmyr Gibbs with these two picks?
I would take, if I got me personally, if Josh would have paid attention to my first pick, taking
I paid attention.
I don't think you paid attention.
You made Josh mad.
I'd have taken Jahmyr Gibbs here with Bijan gone. I think he would come in and be an explosive playmaker on their offense, and they rely on explosive plays. And to me, Jahmyr Gibbs, some teams, as you said, have him ahead of Bijan Robinson. But to get they lost Miles Sanders. They signed Penny, who hasn't been able to stay healthy from Seattle. So I would have taken Jahmyr Gibbs here. And Debo had told me, please, if they ask you, take Jahmyr Gibbs. And so I'm going to go with Debo on this one and take Jahmyr Gibbs.
I'm guessing that Josh thinks that Lucas Van Ness is going to kick inside. But, Josh, you tell us why you took Nolan Smith here.
Well, I don't think, first of all, he's the best player on the board is why I went in that direction. I think it's more in line with what Howie Roseman would do. I personally would have taken a Jahmyr Gibbs here because he's a top 10 player for me, just like Bijan Robinson. But I think Howie is more in line to take a front seven player. Nolan Smith is the best player available. I don't think you would look at Lucas Van Ness and Nolan Smith and question that they play a similar role. So I think that they both have a spot on this defense. They're probably going to have to pay their dues and, be some rotational players early in their career. But I see both of these players as an off-ramp for larger contracts on that roster 2-3 years down the road.
Debo, you okay with Lucas Van Ness and Nolan Smith?
I'm still not okay with Lucas Van Ness.
Oh, you're picking on me, Debo.
Now,
self-conscious.
Looking back at the board, I know I said JSN. If Devin Witherspoon is there at 10, I know you just re-signed 2 of your corners, brought them back. They're both over 30. I'm taking Devin Witherspoon the way that it shook out in this mock.
Yeah. Rick, you can never have enough cornerbacks. You okay with that at 10?
No, since Debo's the boss, yes, Debo, I fully and totally agree with your decision making.
That means he doesn't like it, and that means he's pouting. All right, Rick, you're on the clock at pick 31. You have to take an offensive tackle. Jawan Taylor cannot play left tackle. What are you doing?
Well, I really struggled with this one a little bit. Everybody's a little higher on Anton Harrison, the OT from Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Than I am. I can see that as a possibility here. But I cut Frank Clark. I need another edge rusher to go with Karlaftis. So I took an underrated and I think playmaker that's only going to get better when he gets to the NFL because they're going to play him in a position where he doesn't have to reduce down as a 5-tech. Keep him as a wide 9 pass rusher like Frank Clark. And I'm going to take Will McDonald, the edge rusher out of Iowa State.
And you mentioned it. He has to play 7-tech. You can't put him over the tackle at 145-ish maybe. I think he had 35-inch arms, which is freakishly long. Are you planning on adding weight or he can play that weight?
Well, if he's only 145 pounds, I'd want to put at least 100 pounds on him.
Yeah, at least 100. Can he play?
Oh, yes, I would like to add weight to his 145-pound frame that you so educationally stated.
He needs to stand next to Emmanuel Forbes, so Emmanuel Forbes looks bigger if he's 145. At 245, is that enough for you to hold up an NFL as a 7 technique? Okay, because Karlaftis is certainly thicker than that, and he had a really good rookie campaign. That is it. That is the final mock draft of the 2023 draft cycle for us here with the first pick. But we ain't going anywhere. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll be back Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and again next week. We'll be doing the old looking back before we look ahead, but we'll get to that after the draft. So episode 41 in the books. Remember, give us a thumbs up if you're watching on YouTube, and please subscribe to the podcast and leave a 5-star review. Thanks as always to my guy Rick. Thanks to Josh for joining us. Thanks to Debo for producing, and thanks to all of you for out there who are watching.
Josh, you get another with the first pick T-shirt. You have 3 now, I believe.
Yeah, at least 3.
Is there some kind of a punch card? Am I supposed to be on here 5 times before I get a T-shirt, or how does this work?
Debo's got T-shirt. He ordered hundreds and hundreds of T-shirts.
There's actually a delay, Rick, because we were making just like standard T-shirts, and then we suddenly switched to making with the first pick Guayaberas, and that production process takes a little longer.
Oh, that's Rick. You have to get that embroidered on that shirt. That's what you need to do.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's a great call.
That would be classy if I came out with a Guayabera and I had a with the first pick logo on it.
So Debo, this should be enough lead time next year for our pro day tours. We need some Guayabera with the first pick shirts. I think that has to happen.
You expect to be at University of Miami, Van Dyke. You need some warm
God.
weather. Caleb Williams at USC.
Yeah,
it's a good chance.
There you go. And Rick knows people in all those places, so we'll be set up there. All right, that's it. That's it for this podcast. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We'll be back here tomorrow. NFL Draft.